What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Down. Today's episode, we have New York meets Arkansas.
It's our favorite cut, the straight cut, coming up next on the Burn Down.
Stay tuned.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Down. I'm Justin. We got Eric up there, and today we have very special guests of ours, fellow podcasters. We have Aaron and Mark from my favorite cut, the straight cut. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the podcast.
What's up, man? How y'all doing?
Hey, guys.
You guys been around for a while. You guys been following us since day one.
Yeah, we started. We started a couple months before y'all did, and I think I jumped on your podcast. I think I found you at episode 3, and I think at that time we were like episode 17 or something. So we're not that too far ahead of you on episode wise. So we came up around the same time.
Yeah, we're best friends when it comes to podcasts. You're our day one friends.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it, but. Before we start off, I hope Aaron told Mark what we're all smoking, because if not, he's not a good friend. But I think we're all on the Padron train today. We all conspired to smoke the Padron.
We did.
Yep,
yes.
We're all good. I'm ready to light these up.
So, Mark, what are you smoking today?
So I'm smoking the 1926 that I got out of the Luxury Cigar Club.
Nice.
That's Aaron. I follow Aaron's directions to the T when possible. I don't ever tell him that, because that would give him a big head and I wouldn't be able to get in the same room as him. But that's what I'm smoking. The beard is hard enough. Yes.
Yeah. As of mine of its own.
It does. And then, so what are you? And Aaron, you're smoking on the same thing?
Yeah, same thing. I think it was like from the April box or so. Yeah, the same thing.
I think 3 out of the 4 of us, because I'm smoking the same Padron from the same luxury box. So
nice.
Justin, what do you got now?
So I'm the oddball out right here. I'm smoking the 1964 Corona Maduro. It was between, I think I already smoked that Padron, but it was either between this one or a shorty, and the shorty wouldn't last the whole episode. So we're going with the Corona. So
it's actually my favorite of the Padrones. I like that one a little bit better than this one. That's a great smoke. Yeah. I like the little smaller ring gauge for one thing, and I think the 64 is a little better than the 26. I'm an oddball that way, but.
Well, this is my first time smoking this specific cigar, so we'll see how it goes. But actually, a quick little question that I don't know if it was on our list that we had, but it just popped in my head. So we were talking to Aaron a little bit before, and he was saying that he prefers Lonsdales and some of the thinner cigars, and you had just mentioned that you do as well. Is that your favorite size? Because I'm a huge Lancero guy.
I love Lanceros as well. Aaron refers to himself as a Lancero, and I don't love him quite as much as he does, but I think you get a lot more wrapper. You get a little more complexity. You get a little more just, I think, juice out of those thinner ring gauges, and I do agree with Aaron about that. He's a freak when it comes to the Lancero. There's no question about that. To call you out, my friend.
Yeah, well, no, I'm a self-proclaimed Lancero ho. So yeah, you're right.
That's a first. That's a new hashtag. Hashtag Lancero ho.
I love it, because I agree with you guys completely. As you get more flavor, it packs more punch. There's more complexity, Mark, like you said, in the Lanceros. You get more of that wrapper flavor, and I love them. Eric has smoked his first one on the Burn Down, and he enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
It
also requires a little more attention.
Call me a Lancero virgin, because I'm no Lancero pro, because I've only had one or two. So
I've been around the block a few times now.
No, what are you guys drinking? Because I'm drinking what you sent us, months and months ago when we first started was this Rocktown, Arkansas bourbon. It's about halfway full, so it's pretty damn good. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
they
no
do
problem.
good. Aaron's got to work later today. I'm smoking a little Woodford Reserve, which is my go-to, and he is working, which is probably, since this will be recorded, he's gonna smoke some water or drink some water.
Yeah, I got Dasani, you know.
Yeah, Dasani. It's it's vodka in a water bottle.
Yep.
I'm actually drinking a little Bailey's. I have these little nips of Bailey's. I got 2 of them because I'm having my afternoon cup of coffee, and I figured, well, what goes well with a nice cup of coffee? I'll get a little sweet Bailey. It'll be a nice little dessert after lunch.
Hey, you got to make it Irish, you know.
Well, cheers to you guys. Cheers to the burn down.
Oh, I didn't pour it out yet.
Straight cut coming together. Well, Justin, get on it, man.
I know, I didn't pour it out yet. I showed it to you guys, and I just put it right back onto the table.
It's all right.
All right.
Yeah, you can take your time. Pour that. Show the people what you're pouring in there. Oh, look at that beautiful thing.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Salud. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, boys. Salud. So, let's get right into it. You know, since we're both, cigar podcasts, and we both started around the same time. Or how did you come up with your idea for the podcast? How did you come up with the concept? What inspired you guys?
So me and my old partner, Steve, we both work at the same lounge, West End Cigar, out here in Arkansas. And it was something that we wanted to do because there was a few podcasts out there, but there was none coming from the viewpoint of 2 tobacconists in a lounge where we both really love and enjoy the camaraderie that you get inside of a lounge. So we wanted to kind of bring that aspect and ratio, to everybody out there. Because if you live like in the middle of nowhere, or if you live somewhere where you don't have a lounge, but you're still a cigar person, you can still get that experience, by the podcast. So we talked about it for 6 months to a year. We hem-hawed around. And then that's whenever I found Rob with Cigar Talk. And at that time, he only had probably 5 or 6 shows at the same time as well. I listened to them all on the same day at my main job. And then I texted him. I was like, hey, I've been thinking about doing this too. If you have any pointers, I'd listen to anything. And we, built up a friendship from there. I went back to Steve, and we did probably like 10 dry episodes, just to try to get our flow and our timing down, see what worked best, see what kind of rhythm and the cadence that we had between each other, and mainly just trying to see what kind of topics that we want to get onto. There were some that we wanted to stay clear of like everybody else, but then there was ones that we kind of needed to bring into to get that true lounge aspect. And then we just on May 1st of 2019, it was just like, all right, let's go live. And we pushed that send button, and the first one went out there. And it was weird because it was probably like 1 a.m. or so our time. And then like the next morning I get up super early to go to work, and I checked the algorithms, and it already had like 20 downloads from a couple from outside the US. And it just blew my mind that people were listening to our stuff from 2 guys in Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's the beauty of it.
Oh yeah.
So May 1st is just passed. So congratulations on your 1-year podcast anniversary.
Yeah. We just had our 1 year a couple weeks ago. I think episode 57 or so came out yesterday. So I was with Steve. Steve was with me for about 6 months or so, and then he left and took a rep job for Ashton. And then I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I kind of thought that the straight cut was just done with and over. And Mark, I've known Mark ever since he moved to Arkansas, and we've become good friends. And I had people come up to me looking to be my co-host, but I didn't want a yes man. That was the main thing. I didn't want somebody to agree with me over everything, because me and Steve had that back and forth and disagreed on a lot of stuff, but agreed on a lot of stuff. Mark is the exact same way, where we have the same likes, but there are some dislikes that, like, we play it off each other really well. And so he actually came up to me and asked if he could join, and I was floored, because I mean he's a busy guy, has a high, a really big job, and I was just like, hell yeah, let's do this, because next to Steve, he's the next person who has the same kind of flow that I was looking for.
My favorite part from that was, you don't want a yes man. I believe Justin and I are the same way. We have a lot of the same ideas. We have a lot of the same concepts, but there's always, like, that one time where I'll say something, he'll say something, and be like, well, why don't we try it like this? Or why don't we try both and figure out which one's best? So I think when it comes to a podcast, and especially any kind of team, you kind of need that camaraderie and that, not just one type of way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, anything creative, you have to have two different viewpoints, because, in that Venn diagram, right there in that middle is that sweet spot, and that's what I think we bring to the table now.
Yeah,
Mark, now how do you compete with him going against beards?
Well, I actually shaved mine off at the beginning of the coronavirus, so mine's growing back a little bit, but I'll never compete on beard. Largely, my wife hates my beard, and so at some point I get the order to shave it. And I'm not stupid enough to disagree with that beard, but I do want to agree. One of the things I like about you guys' podcast is there's that natural give and take between two guys that are good friends, right? That they'll argue about stuff that's important, right? And in listening to you guys, you have that natural give and take. And Aaron and I on a Saturday morning will bullshit with each other for a couple hours, and we agree 40-60% of the time. But the making fun is there, but there's also times when we disagree with each other that's pretty real, right? And it's not about, like, politics or whatever, because Aaron and I don't discuss that, but him and I will go back and forth about blue cigar bands, which I hate, and we'll discuss that for a half hour, and it'll get heated for no apparent reason. But there's the natural back and forth that two friends have, and I think that's important. I think you guys have that. I enjoy that about your podcast, because that's what makes, if we're going to agree with each other all the time, that's not very interesting, right? It's boring. And, it's going to get pretty boring. And some of the fun that I had with Steve and Aaron, listening to Steve and Aaron, because I knew some of their backstory, is knowing when they were going to get in each other's face about something. That, I think that's what makes interesting conversation between two people. So,
no doubt.
and I do enjoy that. And there's times when, some of that's real, like we do disagree, and some of that's manufactured because we want to argue about something, but it's fun.
It makes for a good episode, right?
Right.
And I like how you said where, you guys will argue sometimes, but at the end of the day, you guys are friends, and that, okay, you're not going to agree on everything. Like, everybody's different. No two people are exactly like, even twins don't agree on things 100% of the time. So you're going to have disagreements, but you see the other person's point of view, you guys figure it out, and at the end of the day, you're friends, and it makes for a good episode sometimes. So
yeah. Well, Aaron looks rough. He's got the big beard, you can see that, and he's got the tats, you can see that, and he's got the earrings, and he's got all the things that Aaron's got. But in the end, he's one of the smartest guys that I know, and he's one of the more sensitive guys that I know, and I won't tell anybody. But
whoops.
Yeah, whoops. But he's fun to argue with because he is all those things, right? And so that's one of the things that I appreciate most about him, and one of the reasons that he's fun to argue with.
So Aaron, he mentioned you're a bearded brother with tats, right?
Yep.
Now, I used to have a pretty long beard. I have friends that have beards, and I have to ask, how long you've been growing that thing?
To get to this length was probably about a year. I cut about 3 inches off a couple weeks ago. So I usually have it here-ish. I cut it, I say short to me, for my wedding. I got married in August, so I got it cut pretty short. But I've had a big beard for a couple years now. I've always had a beard. I had a beard in high school, but like this, yeah, it's probably about a year, and growing out my hair and everything, just kind of got that. I'm 36, but I still have that punk skater blood in me, you know.
Do you use it as a mask? I've seen videos of people using their beards when they go out in public. They don't even put a mask on. They just cover up the beard and put it on. Does that work?
It's like I have to wear a respirator for work sometimes. It doesn't like fit the best. It's always covered in sawdust at the end of the day and shit like that. But no, like I have a mask for when we go to Fresh Market or wherever we go to get groceries and stuff. And it's just like, it's funny because it's on there, but then you have this big tuft just sticking out below, and it's like, yeah, whatever.
Goodness. I don't think I could ever grow a beard that long. My mom told me years ago, you'll never be able to grow a beard. So I don't know if you guys saw, I was growing a stash out. That's as far as I can go. So.
Yeah, it's like my family, we have good beard genes, I guess. You know, it's bright red. Like it's kind of dark in here now, but like when I'm in the sunlight, it's as red as your jacket. It's pretty gnarly. I thought I was gonna grow it to like, I got tired of shaving. It got so expensive. Razors were so expensive. Man, now with all my balms and oils, I spend 3 times as much on that than I would have just razors. Yeah.
He is very high maintenance on the beard stuff. He recommended a place down in Hot Springs, Arkansas for me, and I walk in and it's like a beauty salon for beards. It's like everything's $50, and I'm going, what? So this isn't cheaper if I'm going to buy stuff from here.
Yeah,
but it feels amazing probably when they get the beard nice and conditioned and oiled up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It feels great.
My brother-in-law owns one of the biggest barbershops in Arkansas. So like I'm always taken care of. It's always, I'm always looking trim and cleaned up and everything. So
now you guys, I gotta admit, and I can't speak for Justin, but you guys are my first friends, first people I ever know from Arkansas. And I know from our earlier conversation, Aaron came from St. Louis and Mark came from Chicago.
Kansas City.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What brought you guys to Arkansas?
My dad got transferred here whenever I was 15, first year of high school in Kansas City, and that was hard. Uprooted my whole life in a big metropolis city, to coming to Little Rock, Arkansas, which at the time had like 100,000 people as opposed to 1.5 million. It was a culture shock, but I love it. It's nice. Kansas City is still always going to be home for me. But Arkansas it's nice. So I was forced to move here, but I've stayed here also.
And yeah, I mean, you moved as a kid. I moved down here about 5 years ago as an adult. We lived all around Illinois. So I grew up in Central Illinois, and my wife is from Central Illinois. I lived in Chicago for a bunch of years, lived in Springfield, which is the state capital. So when we look to move south, because winters are not much fun up north, I think you guys know that. And so I spent summers down here in Hot Springs Village. My grandparents retired down here, and kind of love it down here. It's really outdoorsy. The people are very friendly. And there's mountains and hiking trails and everything. And so I consult with state government. So you get 50 cities you can move to, right? Springfield was out because we were already there. Not moving north, that takes about half of them off the table. And so Little Rock, Arkansas came up on the list. And so we chose Little Rock, and we really liked it. So we came down here. Little Rock's, it's about 800. Aaron describes it a little smaller than it is. It's about 800,000 metropolis now. It's pretty big. He moved to Bryant, which is just outside of Little Rock. It's got nice food. It's got great outdoor stuff to do. It's a pretty nice community. we wanted to get out of winter. Of course, the first winter we moved down here, then there was like a couple of big snowstorms, and they lasted all of 12 to 14 hours before the snow melted. But being from Chicago, you know, where it snowed and stayed for months at a time, I was okay with that. So we love the weather down here. You know, it was 70 degrees, 78 degrees down here, and it's going to be, you know, in the 80s and 90s pretty soon, in the hundreds over the summer. But we love the weather. People are great. Could not love Little Rock more. You know, there's call out to my redneck friends down here. You know, I lived in central southern Illinois for a long time, where there's plenty of rednecks. So when people say you'll take a while to get used to the rednecks, and I said, well, trust me, there's plenty of rednecks in southern Illinois as well. I've got several friends who own Confederate flags and drive around in trucks. I know how that works. But Arkansas is nice. And you know, Arkansas is actually a little bigger than you think. A lot of people leave here because, you know, there's not a lot to do here. But, you know, Scottie Pippen's from here.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So you guys started this podcast, and I know, Aaron, we had you know, on the Burn Down DMs, we had talked about what we like to use. Like, we use Podbean. You guys are using what's the other one? Transistor. Thank you. Yeah. I was gonna say Stitcher, but there's a bunch of other different platforms. But what do you guys use as far as hardware to actually record your episodes? I see that you use the Audacity software. We use the same thing, but I noticed that you guys have. I saw this little device, and I couldn't really make out what it was. What do you guys use to record your?
It's the Zoom H6. So when we first started, we had just like the Yeti Blue USB mics, and we would record our audio independently on each computer, and then we'd have to sync those up and then edit. Now we switched to the Zoom H6. It has 4 lines in. I mean, it syncs all the audio as one file. So when you edit, you have 4 distinct lines, or however many people you have on there. As XLR mics, like the full studio setup. We're working on building our studio, or like a true standalone studio in our second location at the shop I'm at right now up in Conway. So we tear down and set up every week. So once we do that, we're going to get, you know, like a bigger motherboard so we can do more calling out interviews and stuff like that. Because we want to get our listeners more involved. Like, so we're like a show where, like, Rob's show does really good with getting people in the industry. We like doing talking to listeners and, you know, people who just like cigars in general. You know, if you want the big, deep interviews, there's plenty of shows out there for that. We're not that show. We know where we fall in line. And so we like interviewing and talking to listeners and interaction with them, just like with y'all. You know, from the very beginning, we wanted that lounge experience. And the best way to do that is to actually talk to people who go to lounges that really love cigars for what it is, and not people who sell cigars for a living. You know, I'm in the industry, so I know what to say, when to say it, but people who actually like the cigars, that's what we want to do. So with that setup, we're just able to call anybody, whether you're out in California or New York or, you know, overseas. We just Zoom call in, and it all records to that one device, and then I do all the editing on Audacity, which is, I mean, for a free software, that's like the best I've ever used.
Yeah,
I agree with you, because I mean, we used to do it the same way with 2 USB mics, and we were actually using a third-party software that would give you independent USBs. Because we were using the same exact mics, the USB had the same address, and they would clash. We were able to use a third party and split it up, but sometimes the software failed, sometimes it didn't. So we had some trouble there, and now we're just using a Behringer mixer with 2 XLR mics, running the same thing you do, audio into the computer, and Audacity makes it very easy to edit.
Oh man, yeah, I've used paid software. I've been in broadcasting for a while. I've used paid software that doesn't come close well Audacity is. Like, I almost feel bad for using it for free.
Absolutely. And the amount of effects, the built-in effects that they have, as far as, reverb and compression and normalization and noise reduction, they have all sorts of effects built in. So like you said, it should be, it's easily worth a couple $100 for that software.
Oh, easy, by far.
And it's free.
Like, it's, yep.
Well, you guys sound like you guys are the audio technical guys. I have a feeling that Mark and I don't really fall into that category.
No.
Now, we both edit the podcast, the videos, but we both do the video editing, and Justin's more the audio technical guy. Mark, where do you fall under? What do you do?
So he let me edit one of the podcasts once. Him and Steve used to do that, but when I joined on, he said, I want to do that, and I said, I want to know how to do it. So we had a podcast with Jared Trudeau, which was 3 hours, and so I edited it down to about an hour and 45 minutes. So that was a lot of, and I sent it to him, and then he couldn't make it work magically, and so then he edited it. So I know how to do it, but he doesn't let me do it. I'm like on the outside. I'm like I'm the pretty guy on the podcast. He likes doing it, and I keep saying, no, let me do something, and he goes, no, I want to do it, and so I don't do that. I understand what he said, but I don't do it.
And see, like, whenever he came on, he wanted to know, like, I told him, like, this isn't my show. This is your part of this. It's our show. So I wanted him to do more of the behind the scenes stuff, doing the show notes, getting the prep work for the week of what we're going to do, doing that kind of stuff. I like the editing because it gives me a chance to just put my headphones in, have a cigar, and then just kind of zone out and just edit. Like, I put a post out there a couple weeks ago, and it's like, hey, to all my podcast people, who likes doing this? And I think you and I were the only ones that said, yeah, I enjoy it. Everybody else was like, nope, I hate it, and I like it.
It's a part of the game. I mean, it's just like anything else. You got to enjoy the whole process and anything that you do. So and with Mark,
like every time I do it, like, there's always one other thing I wish I could have done a little better. So then it just, like, for the following week, I'll try to do that.
And going back and what Mark was saying, he wanted to learn. When Justin and I were first talking, I really didn't have any experience in video or editing like that, but I would go to Justin for pointers. But the movie software that we use, or the video software, makes it like so easy to be like a pro at editing videos. It's unbelievable. So I feel like we have a good little whatever we want to call it.
We can conquer the world just between the four of us right there, right?
Yeah.
It's actually one of the hard parts. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
One of the hard parts, though, is generating ideas. I mean, I think you guys, I like the direction you guys have done with the podcast, where you talked about you've gone to these internet influencers and reaching out to different people on the internet who are influencers. I found that really fascinating, because these are people who are out there putting themselves out there and getting their perspectives. Because this, everybody thinks that generating ideas for podcasts is like easy, right? And I'm talking to two guys who know that is not the truth, right? It's hard, right? Because there's a lot of ideas out there, but there's a lot of people generating those ideas. You don't want to look like a copycat. So we've gone this route of talking to B&Ms and talking to people who are in the lounge, and you've gone this influencer route, which I like a lot. And Rob's doing the interview in the industry, but generating ideas for podcasts is like really hard. I mean, it's like, that's not creative. That, I don't know that we have enough topic there. What are we going to talk about here? That's the hard part. It's one.
No, we totally agree. And I know I can speak for Eric on this too, is we've had some episodes where, we plan the day to film and we're trying to come up with ideas, but work gets in the way and other things get in the way, and comes a day that we're going to film, and it's an hour before we're going to film. We're like, well, shit, what are we going to talk about? And we just said, all right, you know what? F it, we're just going to call it a shooting the shit episode. We're just going to turn the camera on and just
open mic,
have a conversation over a cigar. And they actually turn into some of the best episodes, because it gives you that natural lounge conversation that we're trying to go after.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because that's what we were trying to do from the very beginning, was to get, if you were just to put a mic inside of a cigar lounge. You're going to get sports talk. You're going to get leadership talk. You're going to get relationship talk. You're going to get all that. So sometimes the best shows, like I mean, with Mark, is just ones where like, yeah, this topic isn't going to fill up the hour and a half that we have. So we're just going to start here and we'll see, where it goes down there. And I really enjoy those episodes because it's more free flowing. It's more natural, just like a normal conversation, where instead of you have all these bullet points that you have to hit. Now there's a time and place for those shows, if you have a guest on or whatever. But, we try to make our show cohesive where we don't need to have a guest on. It can be just the two of us at any given point. But yeah, like you're saying, we're coming up to like episode 60 on a very niche product. You're kind of getting a little loose on topics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so your math was right. So you said you're 17 episodes ahead of us. So you guys would be episode 43. So good math there. But that's what we try to have, like, a weekly phone call, be like, all right, what do we think about today? Or even like in person, like before we shoot, like Justin said, we try to talk about it. But what quarantine brought us was like, we have all this time now. And to your point, Mark, we're like, well, how can we utilize this time to like be better? So we talked to all these social media influencers, cigars and everything else, fashion, whatever. And, people don't actually know these people. So I'm like, well, let's try and go that route, because Justin and I, we're both cigar guys on Instagram, and it's just like, I want to know the people I'm liking their picture, I'm DMing, I want to feel, I could put a face to the name, but you can't really put a personality to it. So this kind of draws out that type of personality, so you have that much of a closer feel to the people you communicate with.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've enjoyed it.
I mean, and with the quarantine and everything that's done, with everything shut down, like we like to be like 6 to 8 weeks out on production and what we know we're going to talk about. And we planned on traveling to all these different lounges and cigar shops. And then we were going to go to PCA this year and interview, Matt Booth or whoever out there, and go as a shop and meet listeners in Vegas. With this, we've kind of had to, just like y'all, we've had to adapt to the surroundings. And so you're getting a lot more, hey, there's tons of people out there. Let's talk to them.
So, my question for you guys, Mark and Aaron, is what is besides the ideas, we might have already just answered the question, but, what else, what is really hard about being a cigar podcast? Because, we find things all the time besides just topics.
It's a very, there's, let's say 3% of the population are smokers. 1% of that 3% are cigar people. So you're in a very tight community, but it's a community that takes it very seriously. So you have to come with your A game. You can't bullshit through anything because you're going to get called out on it.
Definitely.
But just getting a voice out there. One of the first episodes we had Mark on, when it was me and Steve, he said, we're young men in an old man's game. So just like, you two, we're of the younger demographic of a old tradition of cigars. I happen to work at a lounge. I've been there for 4 years. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of voice out there, of somebody who doesn't look like your typical, I don't like using the word aficionado, but your typical, cigar smoker. You have a lot more, the upper crust kind of thing. You're like, yeah, I'm a metalhead. I go to skate parks, former skateboarder. I worked at a tattoo shop, but I'm a cigar guy also.
Yeah, before Justin asks this question, because I know he's drumming up a question right now after that last comment. But we talked to the guys, Chris and Corey from the Hot Ticket podcast, and that was one of the things we talked about was, right now the cigar industry is still cigar aficionado magazine based. The people our age and your age who are not so sophisticated, who are kind of more just average people who like cigars, those people listen to podcasts. The people who smoke cigars for the last 50, 60, 70 years, they don't listen to podcasts. So we're kind of like setting the path for the younger and more middle-aged cigar smokers that enjoy podcasts that can actually feel like they can relate to people like me and you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, print media is going away. I used to write for a newspaper that's not around anymore. Podcast and multimedia and video and stuff like that you're doing I think is going to be the new form of getting like what Cigar Aficionado is, magazine form. This is going to be the new way. I love Aficionado. I read it every month. I'm never going to buy one of the watches that they advertise for. I'm not going to buy the yacht. I'm going to smoke the cigars that they talk about. So, just trying to fill in those gaps between, there's a big gap between what it is and used to be to what it's going to be. And we're somewhere in there trying to figure out where it is.
Yeah, I would agree with the magazines because, like Eric, I don't know if Eric had just mentioned this, where we were thinking about looking into producing a magazine. And one of the things that we found was that a lot of the magazines are flooded with advertisements. So in a magazine that you get 150 pages of quote unquote content, there's really only about 25 to 30 pages of actual cigar content. The rest is Rolex ads, Maserati ads, this ad, that ad. So we were trying to think of, all right, how can we take some of that into this podcast realm? And that's where we're talking about, we want to produce, if we're having a podcast that is an hour long, we want an hour's worth of actual content. So that when somebody comes on and listens, right? I don't know if you have a free version of Spotify. You go onto Spotify, you listen to 2 songs, boom, you get blasted with 4 ads. It says, watch this 30-second video to get 30 free minutes of listening. We don't want that. We want you to come to this podcast. I'm sure you guys want the same. Come to your podcast and listen. If you want to sign up and listen to the podcast, you'll get maybe 1 30-second ad, and it'll be a cigar ad for, hey, use the Straight Cut promo code and you'll get 20% off a box. But you're getting an actual hour's worth of content.
Yeah. I mean, and the way we produce our content is when we first started, we wanted to try to stick, 7 minutes on either side of an hour. We quickly realized that it's not going to happen. So the way we do it now is every cigar, we smoke a single cigar, both of us, on every episode. We break it down into thirds. We talk about it, and we say the vitola as it comes in, the blend, all that kind of stuff. So what we like to do is, if this cigar is an hour and a half, we want that episode to be an hour and a half too. So you can smoke the same thing that we're smoking, has our advertisement in our humidors, either here or Conway, or Little Rock or Conway. So you can sit there, smoke the cigar that we're smoking at the same time, almost in real time, and you'll be able to taste the flavors, get the same, the notes that we're talking about. My palate is different than Mark's palate, so he's going to bring something a little bit different to the table when we're breaking it down. But that's what we wanted to do was, showcase what we're smoking first. And then, like, when it comes to advertisements, we're sponsored by a local brewery. I don't want to be sponsored by anybody who I don't personally use a product, or I actually want to use a product, or I believe in the product. If somebody wants to come to me and, hey, will you advertise for this? And it's a BS product, money or not, I don't want to put my name out there for anybody to use, because if they have a bad experience, that kind of comes back onto me for pimping it out.
So one of the questions I had, and I actually thought of this question because I was looking at the Straight Cut Instagram, and one of the story highlights was music and cigars. So I flipped through all of the stories, and there was a wide range of music, everywhere from metal to Boston to even some electronic music in there, like a remix. And I remember, Aaron, you mentioned that you were a metalhead, and a lot of people don't know this about myself, but I listened to metal as well. I was a drummer in high school growing up, and I loved all the technical skills that came with metal drumming. So I would listen to a lot of metal, and I listen to it now when I work out and stuff. So I wanted to ask you both. So Aaron first, is that like the main thing that you listen to? What are some of your favorite bands? Do you listen to everything else? And then the question for Mark would be, do you listen to metal? Do you listen to, what type of music do you listen to? So Aaron, question to you first.
So I grew up in a jazz household. So jazz was always on in our house. I love jazz, absolutely love it. Coltrane, Miles Davis, big band stuff. I love all that. I branched off and like punk and metal, the more underground stuff. I try to do vocalists for band, more of the heavier, aggressive screaming side, back in my 20s and stuff. I listened to that a lot of post-hardcore, just skateboard, park music is a lot of mine, but jazz, metal, I'm kind of all over. So one thing that me and Mark just started doing, I think we're about a month in now, is because we have a straight cut playlist on Spotify where a couple episodes, again, we did our 20 favorite songs that we like listening to while we smoke cigars. And we had somebody reach out on one of the Discords that we're on, said, hey, have you ever thought about adding more songs to it? And I was like, actually, I have an idea I want to talk to Mark about and make it a weekly bit. So I came to him because we have two different tastes for the most part. So now I give him an album to listen to. He gives me an album to listen to, and we have to pick our favorite song off that, and it goes onto the playlist now. So he's listening to more of my music. I'm listening to more of his, and it really broadens the horizon for both of us.
And I'm older than Aaron, so when I say that I listen to metal, I listen to Metallica and listen to Slayer, and I listen to Ozzy and a lot of the older stuff. My favorite rock band of all time is Led Zeppelin. Not that I remember them, but I was alive when they were out, right? So I lived through hair metal. And that was the real last time I was into metal music, right? And so Aaron he's given me the first time he's given me some of his metal music in the lesson. He gave me Myrrh's last week, which is rap, and so I like a lot of blues and southern rock and country. So I'm not necessarily I like everything, jazz. I always say, and I know. Country music almost killed me, literally, because I was at Route 91 in Vegas, and so was actually at the concert where the shooting happened. So I listened to everything, yeah. And so I am a huge metal guy. A lot of the screaming stuff is lost on me. I'm like, so when Aaron says I like the screaming metal, I go that's not the metal I love. I love Ozzy Osbourne, right? I'm sorry. That's Sabbath is to me one of the great bands of all time. But yeah, I love that, and we've really enjoyed going back and forth. I like intricate lyrics. Like he did Myrrh for me last week. He's a rapper out of LA.
I know Myrrh, and dude.
Yeah, his lyrics are amazing, and you just go, that's a guy who describes pain in a way that you go, I get it, right? And that's what to me his music's about.
He's got the big thick dreads, right?
Yeah, big thick dreads. He did a YouTube video on why Will Smith was one of the greatest rappers of all time, and I'm going, that's exactly right, because I'm like old, right? I remember Will Smith, right? So
I think I saw that music video actually. I think I did see that.
And you just go, yeah, because I'm like a Will Smith guy, because I'm like 100 years old, right? So I remember Will Smith when he came out. So
I was watching Fresh Prince literally yesterday for like 3 hours. So
I mean, because I love the rhymes, I love all that stuff. But I mean, I love guitar playing. I jokingly say I saw one night I saw Jason Aldean, where I was the oldest person in the crowd, and then I saw Leonard Skinner the next night, and I was the youngest person in the crowd. So I've seen like a couple hundred concerts. I love live music. I love music, and metal music in particular is I'm fond of. I've seen Metallica 3 times, and love music. So yeah, it's pretty cool. To me, live music is 100% where it's at. There's just something about that live edge. And metal music in particular is great live because of the guitars and all of that stuff, right?
So you said that Aaron gave you Myrrh. So what did you give him to listen to?
So last week I gave him Ava Cassidy, who's a blues singer. It's a sad story. I'm a specialist in sad stories. Who died in 1996, but she has just this amazing blues voice, and it's live at Blues Alley. She sings, just has a great blues voice, guitar player. She's spectacular. And to quote Steve, and the one before I gave was Gabe Lee, and I love people you can really hear the vocals on. So
I have something for you guys to listen to, because it sounds like you guys like live music, you guys like instruments. Are you guys ever Tosh Sultana?
Okay.
Okay.
Write it down. Tosh Sultan.
Tosh, Tash, Sultana. So she's a one-man band. I think she's from maybe Australia. Her voice is perfect. She plays all different kinds of instruments. Just YouTube her, she'll pop right up. My brother is into all that same type of music you guys described, and he turned her on. I grew up rapping hip-hop. I didn't really like 70s, 80s, and rock music until I was a little bit older, like Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin now. So my brother has that more alternative vibe. But Tosh Sultana, she is amazing. She plays all these instruments by herself live. She has a beautiful voice, and I smoke cigars to her all the time because she's just so relaxing, and her melodies, lyrics is just. So let me know what you guys think here if you listen to her.
Will do. I love recommendations. I have a card next to me. This is, and I write down music on this card that people recommend to me, and that is now on the list. I'm looking forward to it.
Cheers. So we're coming up almost to the end. So I think, Justin, if you want to ask another one or two questions, and then I'll end off with the last question.
A question that I had was, I saw that you guys have, now I don't know who has it, maybe it's in the studio, you both use it, but one of you guys has the new Air Cigar Fridge?
Yeah, so I just, I got that. That's in my house, in our living room. I just got it, I guess, Tuesday or Wednesday. It's still seasoning right now. It's going to be the first one that I've ever had, because we did a couple episodes ago. We did an episode just on humidors. So I'm a carpenter, a finish carpenter. So I do furniture and stuff like that. So I build humidors, but I've never had a fridge like humidor. And I have a problem with buying cigars. So I have a backstock of like 700 between all my humidors in the house, my lockers. I just got to put them somewhere. And I wanted something to look nice, in the front room, and the wife was totally fine with it. We put our record player and stuff on it. So it's still seasoning. I haven't put anything in it yet. What's funny though is that, so I got that Tuesday. I got a new phone Wednesday. So they had to turn my phone off. And during that time when it was off to getting my new SIM card in, I had 2 missed calls and a couple texts from my wife to be like, babe, why did you order another humidor? I'm like, what are you talking about? You saw it, it's just right there. She sends me a picture. They sent me 2. So yeah.
Wow. So is that second one going to Mark, or?
Yeah. I think we got to negotiate.
I contacted Amazon, and they can't take it back. They can't have me pay for it, stuff like that. So they have to count it as a gift through some the Federal Trade Commission stuff. They just can't do anything. So yeah, we're probably gonna have his new Air humidors for the street.
Yeah, I've offered to negotiate with him. He actually has. So I won at the shop that Aaron works at and that I'm a member at. I won the Liga 9 humidor, and so which I was not allowed to bring home because my wife was tired of me winning humidors. So I negotiated with Aaron. So I'm reminding him of that so that I get first right to negotiate on the new Air as part of the beginning salvo of that negotiation.
Yeah,
because I've been debating buying one. They look sweet as heck, don't they? They look really cool.
No, it's nice. It has a nice ambient lights. I mean, it's cool looking. So I'm ready to get it filled up because I just got another
texting me pictures of them. He keeps texting me pictures of the humidor, and I keep telling him that's a pretty looking turntable. Refusing to let him make me jealous about it. But
yeah, I have one, which is the reason I had asked. I got it for Christmas, and I was in the same boat where I had so many cigars and I didn't have a big enough humidor to hold them. So every humidor that I would get, I'd get a free humidor from some giveaway, or I'd get a small desktop one, and I was just filling them up, and I still had more cigars. So I was putting them in big humidor bags, all the ones that, maybe were kind of the bottom of the barrel sticks, if you want to put it that way, or ones that I had triples and quadruples of, I would stick them in there. But I found that the reason why I wanted to ask you how you were humidifying it, but you said you're still seasoning it. But one of the things that I found was, so I'm using the Cigar Oasis to humidify the humidor, but I also added in there, I got a little computer fan, just a little USB DC fan, and I hooked it up to a timer outlet so that it would go on and off every 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes, so that if the humidor is set at 69% and the Cigar Oasis isn't turning on, because that has a built-in fan, but it only comes on when the humidity drops. So if the humidity stays constant, nothing's really circulating. So I found that putting that little fan in there, I got the air kind of moving around to get the cigars on the top shelf the same as the cigars on the bottom shelf. So just a little tip for the new air. If you find one of those, they're really easy. They're like $10 on Amazon, and it's super simple to hook it up to a time outlet.
Yeah, I've got a Cigar Oasis. Luckily with me working at shop, I kind of get first dibs on new stuff that comes out. I've got the Oasis that has a built-in fan on it. I'm going to put it on the bottom. I've got the two, the Butlers. I'll have one up top, one below. Keep track of everything, because these are an investment. I don't smoke inexpensive a lot. I smoke more of like the $13 and up. And if I have, a couple $1,000s of cigars, I'm going to do all that I can to make sure that they're properly kept. So, whenever it's my time to go, at least somebody will have some nice cigars in the living will,
No, absolutely. The same thing, because it's like you said, it's an investment. You want to take care of it. Everybody would ask me, why are you so adamant about keeping the humidity and the temperature? Like, why do you need a fridge? And I would explain to them that the temperature is just as important as humidification. And again, in one drawer, it's almost $2,000 of cigars, because that's the high end Opuses, Cubans, all these, cigars that are $50 and over. I want to make sure that when I smoke them, they're going to be good and not dried out.
Yeah. And I like, me and my wife, we like entertaining. We like having people over. So whenever somebody comes over and they see, they know I'm a cigar guy, and I'm going to give them a cigar, I'm not going to give them, I'm not going to give them something I wouldn't smoke personally. I want their experience to be just as, meaningful as it is to me for them. So, I want to give them something really nice. And, I can attest to Mark, who'd be the same way, because he's just like me, where he has an extensive collection. I think next to me, he probably has, or the shop owner, Mark probably has more than anybody I know.
I have a humidor full of Fuente y Añejos. That's the only thing in that humidor.
That's not bad.
That is my number one cigar.
I think Justin, do you have anything else you want to ask the guys?
No, go ahead. Ask your last question.
So, I believe, so we've interviewed cigar influencers, cigar owners, company owners. So you guys would be like the real first, guests on the burn down that are actually in the shop. So you guys are actually tobacconists. So my question is, can you give us the perspective of being a cigar smoker that works in a cigar shop? What's that world like? Because I'm sure it's a lot different than Justin and I, who are just cigar smokers.
Well, Mark, you go first as a former owner of a shop. You give your take, and I'll give mine.
Well, I'm gonna let Aaron do most of the talking on this, because he's working in about an hour at a shop. But I worked my share of shifts at the shop in Springfield, Illinois, because I was part owner. There's a camaraderie in shops that's, when you work at the shop, that is different than when you own, because you're worried about the balance line. You're worried about the bottom line. One of the things that I love about the shops that I frequent, which has been 4 or 5, is that I've made friends. I have on my phone 10 to 15 people who are people who I know who've worked at those shops who are lifelong friends. Aaron's top amongst that list. Steve is top amongst that list. People who I know I can call on things. People who I consider buddies. People who I've told I've loved at times when it had been tough. Cigar lounges are listen, we're not well liked. Cigar smokers aren't necessarily well liked while we're smoking cigars by people who don't smoke cigars. Let's be honest about that. At times, I've had people at casinos say nasty things to me. But the people who I've met in lounges, the people who when I was working at lounges, who I've known, who I've grown to have as key parts to my life, I wouldn't change that life. I've not worked retail in a ton of spots. Aaron probably has more than I have, so I'm gonna be quiet. I found cigar lounges amazing places with incredible people in them, and I'm grateful for every one of those darn relationships, every single one of them, even the ones that are at times uncomfortable and people are weird. People in lounges are amazing people, and I'm grateful for every single one of them.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then for me, working in a brick and mortar, everybody knows that you can get these for less online. So I have to give them a reason to come back and stay at a lounge. We have, West End has 2 locations in Arkansas. The egotistical side of me says we're the best shop there is. And I honestly, truly believe that because of the employees that we have. Brandon is a top-notch owner. He will give away cigars to somebody who doesn't have the money, but it still wants part of it. And I tried to abide by that same philosophy. So having them come back, knowing that they have a really good experience in the shop, is the most important part for me. To be knowledgeable, to know, to listen to what they're saying. If I know that they want creamy, they want rich, they want luscious, I'm not going to give them, a super strong peppery cigar. It's all part of just, listening to what the consumer wants, because if I give them something that I like, knowing that they won't like it and they have a bad experience, they're not going to come back. So my job is to, educate them on just all the aspects of, of the cigar, but, also just having something inviting and, a welcoming place, because, I've grown, I've got friendships from the lounge that are going to last a lifetime. Whenever it's somebody new, when somebody new comes in, they're a new for one time only. After that, they become a regular. Having the brothers and sisters of the leaf, we have a big female clientele too. So just, not knowing that they're not just going to smoke infused or flavored. I mean, we have one female regular who will, she is probably one of the most intelligent when it comes to cigars I've ever met. And I just love that, because it really, it makes people rethink what they're thinking of what, a cigar smoker is. And you just don't get that when you just order the stuff on, off a computer. When you come into a brick and mortar, you get that one-on-one aspect of somebody who really truly cares for not only the person, but for the product as well. So that's what we try to do at our shop. And, there's always room for growth. If I believe that we're the best shop in Arkansas, there's still always areas to improve on, but that's what keeps the drive alive, is, making sure that people still continue to come in and get that great experience, and just keep them as a regular. And, that's what I really love. And and like I said, and what Mark's saying too, the friendships that have come in. The person who officiated my wedding was one of the first OG regular members of our shop. Mark, we went to we have the same love of Manchester United football club. We went to a Manchester City game. Without having Mark as a regular in the shop, I wouldn't have done that. Just tons of things. My wife now works with Mark, professionally wise. Without the lounge, I don't know if that would have happened. I always joke where if I was ever to get in trouble and get arrested or whatever, I would call the lounge first to be like, what lawyer is there right now?
Sure.
I like that you said, you strike up a unique conversation with the people that come in, especially with those that know about cigars, because it's a conversation unlike any other.
Yeah.
And what's nice about the cigar industry is that it's ever changing and there's always something new that's coming on the scene. So if you know what somebody likes and what they've smoked in the past, and a new cigar comes on that's similar, you could say, hey, listen, this one came on, it's made by a different company, but it's grown in the same regions. It's got a similar blend. That might be Nicaraguan wrapper with Dominican filler. This one is very similar. Got a little tweak. You might like this one as well. So you're constantly having that conversation with those people, which then leads to conversations about other topics and then building the friendship from there.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've always said is like, no matter what you do outside these walls, in this room, you're a cigar smoker first. We're in the capital city, so we have politicians and senators and stuff come into our lounge a lot. They're sitting right next to somebody who's a construction worker like me, dirty, smelly at the end of the day, but they're having a conversation over the one thing that brings everybody in this industry together as one, and that's the cigar. And that's what I really truly enjoy, because we all have our own different political, religious, everything else beliefs out there, but inside the shop, the one commonality is the cigar, and you're not going to get that anywhere else.
Yeah, we that's something we always talk about, and that's why we love doing what we're doing, because it doesn't matter, like you said, your background, your occupation, and what you do. You can have everything completely opposite in interests, but if there's only one interest, which is a cigar, that's all that matters.
Yeah. I mean, you could disagree on everything else, but if you have two people that are smoking the same Fuente, there's your commonality right there. They can strike up a conversation on that. They're like, oh, I like this. You might like this different one as well. So that's it's the cigar lounge to me. It's a very important place. Come the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. There's times where people who come into our shop, they don't have family. We are the family. So we always open up for a couple hours on Thanksgiving and Christmas, just so those people can come into, the lounge and be with their family. It might not be family by blood or by name, but it's family nonetheless.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
That was good. That was a good explanation. Thank you for your answers, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So I guess. Go ahead, Just.
Well, I was going to say. So I think that we're near the end, or at the end of our episode, but we wanted to first off, again, congratulate you guys on your 1 year of your podcast. We want to thank you guys very much for joining us on the Burn Down. All the viewers out there, all the listeners, please go and subscribe to The Straight Cut. Follow them on Instagram. It's The Straight Cut as well. Give them a like, give them a comment, give them a follow. Wherever you find their podcast, 5 stars, 5 thumbs up, whatever you have to do. Same for us. You know where to find us. But with that, we're going to send it off with a final cheers. And again, Mark and Aaron, thank you very much for joining us. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you,
I
gentlemen.
appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been a real great time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Great time. Keep up the good work, guys.
Same here.
Watch it.